The next question is from Mr. McNamara. Mr. McNamara, you're a candidate for office from the Republican Party. One of the issues that has divided the Republican Party of late, and specifically separating the House of Representatives from the President, is immigration. What approach would you take to the issue of illegal immigration and the security of our borders? And how do you feel that that approach differs from that taken by Congresswoman Baldwin?
Well, I'll start with the last part of that first. I disagree that Congresswoman Baldwin and President Bush share a similar view on this issue, and I disagree with them. This idea of a comprehensive plan. The first thing that we have to do is we have to secure our own borders. The analogy that I use is that if you had a broken pipe gushing water into your home, of course the first thing you would do is fix it at the break. Only an idiot would start frantically mopping while the water is still gushing in. My 12 and 10-year-old kids know that. So the first thing we have to do is secure our borders, and Congresswoman Baldwin has had 7 opportunities by my count to strengthen our borders, and she's voted against it every single time. This is a national security issue. In the last 12 measured months of the 1.2 million illegal immigrants we did catch trying to sneak across our border, over 60,000 were found to be hardened criminals. This is a security issue. This is stressing our healthcare system. This is another component of healthcare that we have to deal with. In the southwestern part of the country, emergency rooms are closing down because an illegal immigrant will use these services. They'll provide false information. The bill gets sent out to nowhere. And who do you think's paying for that? We are. We're having to absorb that. There are estimates that are as many as 8, maybe even 11,000 people are crossing our border every day. We can't continue to sustain that. Here in Madison, there is an emergency room. One of the hospitals is losing $3 million a year from this problem. And here's the other thing. American jobs are being threatened by fly-by-night operations that knowingly hire illegal immigrants. They're putting good companies out of business. What do we do? What do we do? I say that we set a date certain of 2 years. We give every illegal immigrant that is here 2 years to stand up and be counted. If they're not willing to do that, then I think it's fair to assume that they're not here for lawful purposes, and at that point, they would become a felon. In the same way, businesses that are knowingly hiring illegal workers, they've got to be held accountable. And I'm a small businessman. I've got a lot of my friends in small business saying, you can't talk about that. Again, I'm going to call them as I see them and let the chips fall where they may. What I want to see, if we do this right, is we can have a massive and peaceful exodus of many of these people, because if the job isn't here, they're going to go home. We need immigration in this country. I want them to come back then and go through this process legally and go through proper health screening and then want to assimilate and become American citizens just like our forefathers did. And the debate the other night, Congresswoman Baldwin started to say illegal immigrants, and she interrupted herself and she said, I mean undocumented workers. Folks, they are illegal. They are illegal, and we've got to establish laws that we're willing to enforce.
Congresswoman Baldwin.
Well, there are 2 approaches that have been widely debated in the Congress of this session. And I do fall on the opposite side of this issue as my opponent. I believe that we have to take comprehensive steps to address the issue of illegal immigration. And a number of the bills that have been referred to that I voted against because it was a fragmented approach, and it didn't hold Congress's feet to the fire to not only deal with the easy questions that we all agree on, but also the tough questions. I think that comprehensive immigration legislation needs to have 3 components, and they are border security, enforcing the laws that are currently on the books with regard to employment of illegal immigrants, also known as undocumented persons. I think that's used interchangeably. And the third phase has to be an answer to the question of what do we do about and with the 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants who are in the United States as we speak. I do not believe on that latter point that it is realistic, pragmatic, or practical to expect that they're just going to come forward and say, where's the bus? I'm going back. And I also think that it is in our national security interest that we bring them out of the shadows and identify them so that we actually do know who is in our country. And so I have to do that in a way that's going to work. And I think that the McCain legislation is much closer to a workable solution. Now, on that latter point of what do you do with those who are here, I do not believe you can accurately characterize the McCain bill as amnesty, as some have tried to do. I think it is very clear that it asks people to come forward, that they don't get to the front of the line in front of people who have come and followed all the rules to get into this country and are along the path of towards citizenship or permanent residence or temporary residence. But that we do have to have a path that involves payment of penalties, if there are back taxes owing, payment of back taxes, learning proficiency in the English language, and passing tests depending on what status they are seeking. I do want to tell you that one of the issues with border security that is greatly distressing to me is that the 9/11 Commission told us we needed 10,000 more Border Patrol workers. The President failed to ask for them in any of his budgets. It is Democrats who have added those personnel when push came to shove in the appropriations process. And I'm proud that we make that commitment.
Mr. Beckham, 1 minute.
I'm so excited because there are so many union workers that are putting yard signs in for our campaign, because they say that Congresswoman Baldwin, who they supported in the past, is talking out of both sides of her mouth on this issue. The fact that she stopped herself in mid-sentence because she has been so inconsistent. If you look at what she said at her listening sessions, her votes, I brought up the fact that Congresswoman Baldwin actually was in favor of a piece of legislation that somebody could attain status simply by writing a letter to the U.S. Attorney General. And she said, oh, that was nonsense, whatever my opponent was talking about. That's ridiculous. Until at the debate in Beloit the other night, I told her that she co-sponsored H.R. 1713, introduced on May 3rd, 2001, co-sponsored it to allow illegal immigrants to apply to the Attorney General of the United States for the adjustment of his or her status to that of a lawful citizen. And she had nothing to say except, oh, now I know what he's talking about.
I'll tell you what I said then, and I'll have more to say on that tonight. I said, thank you finally for giving me a reference so I could actually look up the bill that you're talking about. And then I said, it's not writing a letter, it's an application. Those of you who've ever applied to college, and I assume that's most of you in this room, know that the application is the start of a long process that relates to testing and background, well, in this particular case, background checks, etc. Now that I have the reference to the bill, I had a chance to go look at it. It was a very technical fixed bill relating to a provision that had been in appropriations bill, dealing with a very narrow segment of people who come in without necessarily going through the channels. And let me give you an example. Crew members aboard airplanes from other countries who don't go through the customs that somebody else might and stay briefly in the United States, or crew members aboard transport ships who are ported here for a certain amount of time.